Growing up, The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask was always my favorite Zelda title. It wasn't because of the dungeons, which I liked, and it wasn't because of the story, though I did really love it. It was because of Clocktown. I used to spend hours just walking around it, watching the people go about their day, seeing the shops open and close, people moving from place to place with purpose, everyone following some sort of routine. It all just felt real. It was like these characters had lives that kept going even if I wasn't there. And honestly, that is probably the biggest factor into why I was obsessed with Animal Crossing when that game came out a few years later. There was one character though, I don't really understand why, but he always stood out to me. Not because he was like fleshed out or because he was some crazy important character to the overall story. He was just a guy doing his job, staying on task and not really paying attention to what was going on around him. In Majora's Mask, we find ourselves in the land of Termina. As a location, Termina is home to dark and more grim themes compared to the more hopeful and brighter world of its contemporary, Hyrule, where in the latter, people live their lives in a static, carefree way. In the former, people live with a lingering reminder overhead that the clock is ticking. Time in Termina is, by far, the most important aspect. Funny, considering the prequel Ocarina of Time has it, right there in its name. Everything, everyone, and everywhere revolves around time slowly counting down over a 72-hour period. 3 days. And I think that's fair, right? You might also find yourself a bit hopeless, scared, or even panicked if you knew everything you knew and loved were doomed to be completely obliterated the day after tomorrow. The people of Termina try to go about their day the best they can. They run shops, inns, do their jobs, and find solace in one another. Even as the moon waits heavily above their heads, staring down with an awful face, big teeth, and large orange eyes, they know their world is ending. They know there is nothing they can do except wait and pray that it will be quick. And so they cope. Anju runs the inn, staring blankly. Her body language implies that she's trying to keep things together while wondering where her lover has disappeared to. The Rosa sisters practice their dance routine for the carnival. Whether or not it will ever happen, the show must go on. And Muto, stubborn as ever, insists construction continue, even cursing the moon in the final hours to fall if it's really going to. While these people still adhere to some form of routine, it's undeniable that they all acknowledge the moon. How could they not? They never lose sight of what's coming for them, their own boogeyman. One person, however, carries on his routine faithfully, regardless of the state of his surroundings. Not as a way to cope, not even as a way to distract himself, not as a form of denial either. He simply just continues. A service worker, dedicated dearly to his duties, the postman. The postman is so dedicated to his position that his name is never formally revealed in game. He is known as nothing more than the postman. He is the sole person responsible for Clocktown's postal system, working day in and day out on foot, checking mailboxes, collecting letters, and ensuring they make it to their destination. There's no glory for his job. People don't celebrate his name or praise his work. But despite that, he persists, doing exactly what he's tasked to do, and he does it very proudly. And this is his character. Almost mechanical, in a way. A person with a sense of timing so exact that he practices interval guessing down to the very second. Even though the world begins to fall apart, people panicking, people fleeing, trying to make sense of what little time they have left, nothing about him really changes. The letters still need to be picked up, and the letters still need to be delivered. Majora's Mask gameplay loop consists of moving back and forth across a 3-day span. Every day, every hour, every character repeats the same routine. Some characters you can interact with and change the course of how their 3 days will go, but not everyone. If left alone with no interaction, the people of Termina will repeat this cycle infinitely. And when time is reset, their memories reset as well. This is important because this allows us to observe them consistently throughout their day. The first time we see the postman is at 9 a.m. on the first day, when he leaves his combination post office home. You can only enter his home at specific times, so the assumption can be made that before he leaves, he's rather asleep or preparing for work. He spends the morning moving from mailbox to mailbox across Clocktown, checking all 5 over the course of 3 hours: 9:30 a.m., 10 a.m., 10:35 a.m., 10:55 a.m., and 11:25 a.m. Each one at a precise time is given a quick tap before he moves on. If at any point you try to interact with him on his route, he will simply tell us,
I'm currently on the job. If I stop to talk, it'll disrupt my schedule.
At 11:25 a.m., he collects a letter from the laundry pool mailbox from a mysterious boy. I wonder who that could be. Afterwards, he returns home at 12 p.m. If we enter, we find him in bed taking a nap. And if spoken to, he explains,
According to my schedule, it is now my nap time. If my schedule is disrupted by even a few seconds, letter delivery will be delayed. Public service is very hard.
a government mandated rest, I guess. At exactly 1 p.m., we're forced out, and right on time, he leaves again, beginning his delivery route. He heads to the Stockpot Inn, delivering the letter to Anju, before immediately turning around and heading back home. At 3 p.m., he returns, and for the rest of the day until midnight, he doesn't leave. If we check in on him again, we find him laying on his bed, quote unquote, mentally training, practicing his ability to count 10 seconds exactly without the aid of a clock. We can even join him, and if we get it right, he rewards us. This concludes his routine for day 1. Day 1 is important because it gives us the clearest picture of what a normal day looks like in Termina. So between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. is his collection route. 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. is his rest. 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. is his delivery, and 3 p.m. onward is training. Everything has its place, and everything has its time, and he follows it to a T. On the dawn of day 2, we're met with rain and thunderstorms. But despite this, the mail must be collected and delivered, rain or shine. Like the previous day, he leaves the post office at 9 a.m. on his collection route, making his passes at the exact same times. He then returns home at 12 p.m. to rest. But this time, something is different. If we talk to him, he laments that there was no mail today, stating,
This is a problem, a real problem. Not a single letter was mailed. What should I do today? I wish someone would tell me.
At 1 p.m., we're kicked out again, but this time we can't re-enter. He stays inside his home for the rest of the day. Something strange happens, though. At 12 a.m., he leaves. And despite there being no mail, he makes a delivery anyway. He walks to the laundry pool mailbox, deposits a letter, and then returns home at 2 a.m. His morning route is the same. His timing is even the same. But something's missing. There's not really a reason for him to be doing any of this anymore. On the final day, as usual, we see the postman leave his home at 9 a.m. Just like the previous 2 days, he makes his rounds, then takes his 12 p.m. nap. During this nap, when prompted, he says,
Last night, I wrote a letter to myself and deposited it in a post box. I just retrieved it. This afternoon, I shall deliver that letter.
The letter he delivered at midnight was one that he wrote himself. This is interesting because we can see how stressed and distraught he is over no one sending mail, because no mail affects the schedule. So in order to keep the schedule having some sense of normality in his life, he has to send himself mail to keep his schedule going artificially. At 1 p.m., he leaves his home and he begins his delivery route. On this specific route, he makes the same passes he does as his morning collection route. However, something's a bit off, as he doesn't even check the mailboxes, he just brushes past them. The route is still there, the timing is still there, it's just that the job isn't there anymore. And at 3 p.m., he returns home. If we enter, we find him on his hands and knees on the floor. This is the most important interaction with the postman. When we find him in a disheveled state on his hands and knees, we can talk to him. We find out that he's finally acknowledging what's happening around him. The issue, he can't leave. He is so engulfed in his duties, in his schedule, that he cannot flee. The schedule simply doesn't make time for it. He's paralyzed. This is an important moment for this character storyline, because there's 2 possible outcomes for his future. If you choose not to intervene, the postman will stay in Clocktown until the very end. He will not leave, and he will instead perish when the moon falls. But if you do decide to intervene, you can give him one last delivery. A letter from Kafei, Anju's missing fiancé,
the boy in the mask who deposits a letter on day 1. The letter is a high priority delivery known simply as Special Delivery to Mama. You see, Kafei's mother is Madame Aroma, the mayor of Clocktown's wife. She also just so happens to be the postmistress who is in charge of the postal service, the postman's boss. When speaking to him on the floor, you are prompted to give him the letter, and if given, he rushes immediately down to the milk bar where he hand delivers it to her. She responds, "It can't be. You're still here?" Shocked that he's yet to flee with the rest of the town's inhabitants. His reply is, "Tomorrow's delivery is still scheduled." That's his reason for staying. There was mail that was scheduled for the next day, a day that was doomed to never come. And instead of fleeing, instead of worrying for his own sake, he decided to stay. When everything is stopped, when the world has finally come to its end, the letters still need to be picked up. The letters still need to be delivered. When the letter is delivered, Madame Aroma finally relieves him of his duties. And for the first time, his schedule is gone. He states,
I have decided to flee. It is an order from the postmistress. I am now free. I can set my own schedule.
We obtain the postman's hat and he flees Clocktown to seek shelter and safety. But even then, he didn't choose to leave. He was told to. He needed permission. And that's what makes it feel a bit unsettling. The postman isn't trapped by anything physical. There's no magical barrier preventing him from leaving Clocktown. No one is really forcing him to stay. No one except himself. He just never stopped. He keeps moving from one task to another, from one responsibility to the next. He kept himself busy until there was nothing left to stay busy with. But by then, it was too late. The world was already ending. What makes the postman so interesting to me is how much it reflects real life. It's not something I would have noticed as a kid, but looking at it now with real world experience, it's hard not to see it differently. Sometimes being busy feels like you're doing something right. Like you're staying productive because you know you're supposed to. So you push yourself forward. And if you keep pushing yourself forward and you keep doing it enough with tasks, responsibilities, work, school, or even relationships, it becomes easy to miss what's happening around you. Things changing, things falling apart, things that may have already stopped mattering to you. The postman didn't ignore that the world was ending. He just never stopped long enough to notice it. I can't really explain to you why, as a kid, I found the postman so interesting. I used to follow him around and pretend I was helping him deliver letters. Even now, looking back on all the characters from the game, there's characters that are interesting in other ways too. There's the storyline with Pamela and her father, who has been turned into a Gibdo, which is sad and very heartbreaking. There's Anju and Kafei storyline, which when completed is one of the most genuinely beautiful moments from a Zelda game. There's Romani and the alien invasion, which, at least for me, is easily the most terrifying thing to witness. What I'm trying to say is the game is filled to the brim with interesting, sad, sweet, and scary moments and storylines. But regardless of that, there's always going to be a place in my heart for the dear old postman. Thanks for watching.